Yeah.
This is Geek Therapy Radio.
What are we waiting for?
And now your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger.
Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio and this edition of Midweek Geek. As always, I am your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. Thanks for stopping by. The quick reminder, as always, to subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. I very much appreciate even the consideration of subscribing there on YouTube as I hunt for my first 1,000 subscribers here in 2019. I know there's a lot vying for your attention, so even if you think about subscribing, I fully appreciate it. Toss a thumbs up if you like. Interact with the video in some sort of way. Also, if you're listening to the podcast, which you probably are, because Midweek Geek is not broadcast on KPRC 950 AM, but if you're listening to this podcast-only version of Geek Therapy Radio, aka Midweek Geek, I'd consider subscribing too in your favorite podcast player. Of course, we here at iHeartMedia prefer the iHeartRadio app. Housekeeping done. Let's dive in to, as I like to say, the meat and potatoes of this edition of Midweek Geek, and that is Windows Phone. I am willing to wager. I wager $50. Maybe no. I'm going. You know what? Vegas, baby. $100 that almost nobody listening to this, and almost nobody watching this is using a Windows Phone. Now, maybe 1.2 of you are, but yeah, Windows Phone did not do well. I bought a Windows Phone back in 2012, I want to say, 2011 maybe, 2010. It was an HTC, was it an HTC? HD7 or whatever it was. Before that, I had an iPhone, and I had not had I didn't get an Android device yet. So in between iPhone and Android, which I'm rocking now, and have been rocking for several years, for a long time, I don't see myself going back to iPhone. Definitely don't see myself going to Windows Phone because, well, obvious reasons. But I bought the HTC, I think it was HD7. It was terrible. Right off the bat, it was terrible. And I wanted it to be good. I was rooting for a good Windows Phone, and that never happened. Maybe you are the one out of how many thousands of people who actually had a Windows Phone, and maybe you really, really, really like it. But you know what? The app support just wasn't there, and it was unfortunate. It did not. Of course, it didn't have the app support that Apple did. Didn't have the app support that Android does. You know, the two big players in the game, and I think that was its biggest downfall. Other than another glaring downfall, which I'll get to in a second. This is kind of the shoulda, coulda, woulda for Windows phones. It's like a glaring oversight that they never pulled the trigger on, and if they would have, Windows Phone would be a viable competitor amongst Apple and Android if they had done this one thing, which I'll get to in a second. But that being said, nowhere along the line did Windows Phone ever have great app support, and that is what killed it. So much so that Microsoft officially now is telling users of Windows phones to jump ship. They say now is the time to start thinking about either going to Apple or Android, because they are officially ending support and development or anything for any future Windows phones. They're done with it. They are done supporting Windows phones. After they might do one or two more updates, but after that they're done. So much so that they, like I said, they tell Windows Phones users to jump ship now. There's nothing else coming. There's nothing saving it. We're going down. You just choose Apple or Android and use our Microsoft apps on those phones. So what could have saved Windows Phone? And this is just my opinion. And I'm sorry, briefly to interrupt here. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm not wearing my glasses for this video because I'm trying something. I'm considering getting contacts again, and I'm looking at YouTube videos and the glare of lights and stuff in my eyes, and because I got big, thick Coke bottle glasses. So if you're wondering why I'm not wearing glasses today, that's the reason why. Back to Windows Phone. What could have saved Windows Phone? And again, this is just my opinion, but I think it would have been just amazing. And I think a lot of you already know where I'm going with this. Surface Phone. If Microsoft would have just made a quote-unquote Surface phone. You know, they have the Surface laptop, their Surface tablets, their Surface Studio, their entire Surface line of PCs and tablets. If they would have just made a Microsoft Surface phone, holy crap, that would have been awesome. And that, honestly, I can't see why that would not have solidified Windows phones in the phone market. So you might be thinking, well, it would just be a stripped down version of Windows on that Windows Surface. No, that's not what I'm saying on the Surface phone. That's not what I'm saying. If they released a Surface phone with the full fat, no pun intended, but, you know, a file system, NTFS file system or whatever, running full legacy apps, meaning that it's just a computer, an Atom-powered, you know, system-on-chip computer in your pocket. You can run every single application you can run on your home PC, you could be able to run on your Surface phone. And the little cover, you know, the type covers that come with the Surface tablets, like the Surface Pros and everything like that, just have a littler version like that on your big phablet, you know, your 6-inch screen, 6.3-inch, whatever screen Surface phone with that screen protector. I'm having a hard time with words today. It happens sometimes when your job is to talk. But the screen cover, the type cover, and it could be relatively comfortable to type on. But what I'm getting at here is you have the full Windows 10 experience, full fat Windows on your phone. So now, instead of carrying multiple devices around, carrying your phone around and carrying a tablet around or a laptop, let's say you're on the move all the time. Wouldn't it be nice? Sorry, to have a PC in your pocket. We know that we know that manufacturers are capable of producing such a device. I just did a video recently on my GPD Pocket, which is a full Windows 10 device that fits in your pocket. And it turns out the keyboard is reasonably nice to type on. I have a feeling that Microsoft could have done a much better job with the keyboard with that type cover attached to a Surface phone and have a full-featured, full-blown PC in your pocket. Phones already, the Galaxy Note 9, any flagship smartphone right now has 4 gigabytes of RAM, 6 gigabytes of RAM, 8 gigabytes of RAM. There's been rumors in the rumor mill of phones coming out with 12 gigs of RAM, which is just ridiculous. You really don't need that on a smartphone. But the point I'm trying to make here is you could have had a Windows phone, a Surface phone, Microsoft Surface phone with 6 to 8 gigabytes of RAM, running a 64-bit full-blown version of Windows with a type cover covering that screen, that when you're on the go, you have your full PC experience wherever you go. Another thing to this point, Samsung with their Note 9 and S9 Plus and S9 and all that stuff, they have something called the DeX, which is basically you plug in your through the USB-C port, you plug in a monitor and you can pair up a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, and basically you have a desktop kind of PC-esque interface to use your phone. So you can run multiple applications, type in word processor and all that kind of good stuff using your Samsung device with a function called DeX. So we know it's possible. Could you imagine a Surface phone that you plug into USB Type-C, goes onto a monitor, a normal size monitor, or the TV in your hotel room, and you pair a Bluetooth mouse and keyboard to it, and you're running a full PC wherever you go? Wherever you go. That is what the Windows Phone should have been. You know, we hear all this chatter. Apple should unify iOS and mobile versions of their operating system and everything like that. Mac OS and iOS unified into one operating system that just works seamlessly across all devices, from your iPhone to your iPad to your iMac to whatever. One operating system. And it was so silly that Microsoft and Windows had all of that available to them. They could have easily put full fat Windows on a phone using an Atom processor or whatever, have a full 64-bit, full-blown version of Windows, not a stripped-down RT version or anything like that. Microsoft could have done that. If they would have made the Surface phone, what a boon that would have been to the Windows Phone market. Wow. It is just amazing what the oversight. And you know what? I know the reality is, and I don't want to believe this, but it's true. Why didn't they do that? Well, because if you had a full-fledged Windows in your pocket, it would be cannibalizing their own product line. Would you buy a Surface Pro or would you buy a Surface tablet, whatever, laptop, anything, if you had it all in your pocket? If mobility is the biggest selling point there, and the ultimate mobility is just the phone you have in your pocket, make that a PC, a seamless transition between the office and home and everything. You just have your Windows PC. They have OneDrive. They have all the cloud and everything like that. How wonderful would that have been? So, what do you think? Would you have bought a Surface Phone if Microsoft had ever released it? Do you think the Surface Phone would have worked? Do you think Microsoft would have never released it ever? The reason that they didn't release it is because it would have cannibalized their own product line. That's my theory of it all. But what's your opinion? If you're watching this on YouTube, let me know in a comment below. If you want to get in touch with me in any other means, go to geektherapyradio.com. That's geektherapyradio.com, or just email me. geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. There's any number of ways to get in touch with me. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook, Geek Therapy Radio on Instagram and Twitter, all that good stuff. Get at me. Would you buy a Surface Phone if they ever released it? And do you think that would have helped the Windows Phone in general become a viable phone in the phone marketplace? I think it would have, but I'm interested in your opinions. Thank you for joining me on this edition of Midweek Geek here on Geek Therapy Radio. Join me on Friday for the big fat podcast of Geek Therapy Radio. And then Saturday night here in Houston, KPRC 950 AM is when the Geek Therapy Radio broadcast airs right here in Houston. Consider subscribing if you haven't already to either the podcast or the YouTube. I appreciate both. That'd be awesome. And until next time, take care, everybody. Be good to each other, including yourself. And I'll catch you in the next episode of Geek Therapy Radio.